if I'm spending 60 hours a week on social platforms and
Mhm.
I quantify that over the span of my life, would I rather spend that time doing something else with family, with my dogs or kids or whatever these things are, learning to play piano? And again, like I want to emphasize, I'm not asking people to abstain from social media completely in that sense. It's really it's establishing boundaries after you do the work and understanding where your time is being sucked away from you. Because really, it's one of the few things that a lot of people as they get older in life wish that they could exchange money for, optimizing their health span,
Mhm.
so that they can have quality years in their later life. But if you're not optimizing, I'm not saying to time hack everything by the minute right now, but do the work and figure out what's valuable to you in your life in that sense.
Well, yeah, let's talk about how to live our lives. But before we talk about that, you said something that I do want to challenge a little bit. You said that it's not like someone sitting up in the C suite trying to figure out how to manipulate and brainwash our civilization. I have to disagree with that a little bit. While, okay, so my like my understanding is because I've seen it, is that okay, sure, the algorithm can be adjusted. Elon Musk very publicly talks about adjusting his algorithm. There was a period during the election where he said we are going to weight good, happy sentiment higher than negative sentiments in posts and in what we're going to show people in their feeds. So, control of the feed is a very powerful thing that the companies can manage pretty offhands. They just adjust the algorithm, and then the algorithm will then execute on what shows up in your feed. And I'm not saying that there's, some horrible person at TikTok who is, intentionally trying to, for instance, destroy American culture. I'm not saying that because I just don't know for certain, but it's possible, right?
Yeah.
It's very much possible. And then now I want to talk about the content creators who know the algorithm, whose entire companies are founded on how these algorithms work, create content to then drive and capture audiences because they're working that algorithm and they know exactly how to like angle with it. And as a result, they become very influential on these sites.
Yeah, and in no way, shape, or form am I saying that I'm standing on a pulpit here and holier than thou, and that's not something I've done. I mean, you look at my history from 2006, 2007, all the way up into the present. Like I could quite literally call somebody at YouTube in 2008 and say, "Hey, look, I have this new video coming out. I think you're gonna love it and everything," and then they would put it on the homepage to the point where in 2012, when the various weights of the algorithms shifted towards from click-through rate to watch time on video and all these other different things. I trend jacked. I definitely exploited the algorithm, but I have this saying, you play the rule book, not the game. And so this is the game, but there was a rule book in which I leveraged to succeed. And so in no way, shape, or form am I saying that I didn't do that. But it's unfortunate at a individual level that this is the game that we're playing.
Yeah. And it's not like the algorithm is some nascent entity that is ever set. It's constantly evolving. Engineers are constantly tweaking it. And we don't know the powers that be that influence those changes to the algorithm. And so, in a world like this, we can feel one thing one day, go online 2 weeks after the algorithm has been adjusted, and then be like, "Ah, I feel a little bit differently about that."
Yeah.
So, it really is an emotionally triggering capability. I mean, how powerful is that, that you can influence society with just a few lines of code?
Oh, it's amazing. And again, the downstream second order consequences of those things, the example that I give a lot of the guys in our community is when you're sighting in an optic on, say, a rifle. If at 100 yards you sight it in a little bit off, it's not that noticeable, but at like 500 to 1,000 yards, it's going to miss the mark completely. And I think we're seeing those downstream effects where it wasn't that big of a problem 2, 3, 5 years out, but now a decade, 2 decades downstream of these subtle changes have long-term consequences. And to give the analogy of the garden,
Hmm.
I'm big into the world of regenerative agriculture and really developing a diverse biological healthy ecosystem makes it resilient over time. And there's also a saying in regenerative ag, it's not how much rain you get, it's how much you keep. And
Yep.
to do that, you have to have, that healthy soil without compaction, without the crust on top. So when you do get the rain, you get the infiltration into the aquifers and everything else. And having said that, inputs equal outputs. So if your inputs are always toxic, your outputs aren't going to be as beneficial as you'd like them to be. And I think that's kind of one of those second order effects downstream that we're starting to see play out in the bifurcation, polarization, and politics and society in so many different ways. And if you look at a lot of statistics, be it homicides and different things, and like say FBI crime stats, you'll find that there's actually a plateauing of a lot of these statistics, but the amplification of everything on social media has led people to be into a heightened state and fight or flight emotional response all the time. And when your inputs are always these exacerbated, unrealistic, perceptions of reality, your day to day is going to be impacted from it. And I think those are the consequences that we're starting to see now play out.
I mean, we've been seeing them for years, and it's really nerve-wracking to the point where, the government's keeping an eye on social media. TikTok's about to be sold. The US TikTok is going to be owned by Andreessen Horowitz and several others. And that's because there was a fear that China was using TikTok to destabilize America. So this is a real serious problem. And look, you describe in your book that it's when we think about how algorithms reward behavior, it's very much identical to techniques used in a casino to keep people in a casino. And you mentioned bright lights, and I follow the work of Dr. Jack Kruse. I don't know if you know Jack
Yeah.
Kruse. He talks about that it's not just the content itself that is manipulating your brain, it's the blue light. It's the intensity of the blue light, and it's exposed constant exposure to your the nerves that sit behind your eyes.
Yeah.
And so the content is received by the brain totally differently when you receive it on a blue light device like an iPhone or a laptop.
Yeah, the gambling analogy is so perfect because I went through for the book a number of studies and books on various addictions from alcohol, substance, pornography, and gambling was the most nefarious in that. Like you say, they're taking all these different components from the lighting, the sounds, and all these different mechanisms. The variability in the reward mechanism is arguably one of the most addictive components to it. So if you think about, say, Instagram and various social platforms that allow you insight to see who's looked at it and what's the distribution like on your content, who's
Mhm,
seeing that, who's clicking on it, and then this time it isn't as good as the last one. I got to keep feeding the beast. I have to keep consistently uploading, and there is
mhm.
that component to it. Yeah, and it's unfortunately the last 2 decades has really optimized more and more to the point where again we're starting to see these downstream effects.